Welcome to Beijing Review's Bilingual Insights. I'm Leila Zhang. Today we are doing a deep dive into something reshaping the global auto industry, China's new energy vehicles, or NEVs. Here's where we stand. In 2025, China's NEV production and sales both exceeded 16 million units. For the very first time, NEVs accounted for 50% of domestic new car sales. In China today, 1 out of every 2 new cars sold is an NEV. But across the Pacific, and you see a totally different narrative. Global media headlines read security threats, overcapacity, dumping, data risk. So here we are, same industry and 2 different stories. And why? Today we will find out. We will tell the story of China's NEV revolution as it really is, then hold up a mirror to see how it gets refracted through the Western media lens. Because the battle for truth is often fought one word at a time. And let's start with the Beijing Review piece. Meet Liu Wen. He is a Beijing professional and heads the Xiaomi Car Owners Club. When his family decided to buy a new car, they initially considered a Tesla. But then they had some second thoughts. So they did something increasingly common in China today. They test drove every major Chinese NEV in their price range. And their final choice, a Xiaomi SU7. Liu told Beijing Review that his decision came down to 3 major factors: aesthetics, premium interior features, and an intuitive human-machine interface. This is the new customer logic driving Chinese NEV market, and the price story is equally remarkable. Wang Tao, a loyal Xiaopeng owner, has upgraded his car for 4 times since 2019. He told us the cost of key components like batteries and chips has fallen so sharply, and while domestic supply chains have matured. This price reduction isn't a sign of diminishing quality. It is the fruit of rapid technological iteration and fierce competition. Car owner clubs in China has also evolved from casual hobbyist groups into sophisticated ecosystems. As Liu Wen explains, once you are accustomed to the smooth acceleration and low running costs, going back to a traditional gasoline car feels like stepping backward. And within these communities, the repurchase rate for Chinese NEVs exceeded 90%. This confidence isn't confined to China. In 2025, Chinese NEV exports alone reached 2.6 million units, a 103.7% year-on-year increase. So that's the story as we see it, a market-driven technological revolution. But open some Western media sites and you'll find a very different picture. CNBC tells us that China's EV boom is ending, warning of a survival test and fierce price war. The New York Times reports that investors are selling shares of Chinese NEV companies amid concerns that the era of easy growth is over. And the Associated Press quotes U.S. officials claiming that China invests in its auto industry to control this industry and take away jobs. And how do we make sense of this gap? The answer lies in the words chosen to frame the facts. Let's examine 3 keywords that Western media consistently use. The first one is dumping. In trade terminology, dumping means exporting goods below cost to destroy competing industries. It implies unfair competition. CNBC frames it this way. But here's what the data actually shows. A German expert recently found that Chinese models sell in the EU with an average markup of 118% over domestic prices. A car costing 14,936 in China sells for 32,573 in Europe. So when Western media use the word dumping, what's the reality? Chinese companies aren't flooding markets with below-cost goods. They are practicing normal, profit-seeking international business. The word dumping transforms legitimate competition into an accusation of unfair play. The second one is overcapacity. Overcapacity sounds very technical, but it carries a clear accusation. It appears in Reuters, Economic Times, and multiple other platforms. And the Economic Times adds, and yes, Chinese officials discuss capacity optimization, and that's responsible governance. And yes, the latest 5-year plan prioritizes new frontiers like quantum tech. But does that mean NEVs are being excluded or have failed? Consider an alternative reading. NEVs have matured to the point where they no longer need the same level of strategic designation. They've moved from emerging industry to established strength. That is success, not failure. Moreover, if overcapacity were truly the problem, prices would fallen only in export markets. But they're falling in China too, thanks to innovation and supply chain efficiencies. That is not dumping. That is progress. The third one is risk. Risk appears everywhere in Western media coverage. Here's what a UK Member of Parliament said as reported in November 2025, and his comment has been published in many German and British medias. The word risk here portrays standard smart car technology as a national security threat. It justifies investigations and exclusionary policies. But here's the irony. The very same over-the-air update capabilities that British politicians label a security threat are actually standard features for Tesla, Volkswagen, and every major EV manufacturer. If remote updates alone constitute a security threat, then virtually every networked vehicle qualifies. So the question becomes, why single out Chinese manufacturers? So what words do we choose at Beijing Review? When we describe price advantages, we use affordable or high-cost performance, terms that convey value, not cheapness. When we describe interconnected strength of China's industry, we use ecosystem, a biological metaphor that captures organic interdependence. When we describe car owner clubs, we use community, recognizing consumers as active participants, not passive recipients for subsidies. When we describe global expansion, we use localized integration, capturing the reality that companies aren't just exporting products, they're building assembly plants and charging networks in local markets. And when we describe the governor's role, we use facilitating and guiding, terms that acknowledge industrial policy without reducing success to it. These word choices matter, and they shape how readers understand China's NEV revolution as a genuine technological achievement, not subsidized anomaly, as a story of people and communities, not just factories and trade statistics. So where does this leave us? China's NEV industry is writing a new chapter in automotive history. It is a story of technological leaps, consumer empowerment, and community. But every story depends on who's telling it and which words they choose. Our task at Beijing Review isn't just to report the facts, it's to ensure those facts are framed accurately, with words that carry the full weight of our reality. Because in the end, the words we choose shape the world we see. I'm Leila Zhang. Thanks for joining us on this Bilingual Insights journey, and see you next time.